For joining us for lesson 2, where we're going to talk about pre-event engagement tools. This particular part of the class is going to be pretty fast-paced. I'm going to talk about lots of different tools. You can see that I think we have about 67 slides to go through for this particular piece of the puzzle. But we're going to run through them pretty quickly, and I'm going to just introduce you to a wide variety of tools that you might use before an event actually happens. So, as we talk about in lesson 1, these are tools like social media management, event management, and then registration, and a few other tools that I think you might find very helpful in the planning process of an event. Again, whether that's internally, things that you're using to organize the event, or outward facing, like registration platforms. Um, the idea of this particular class is really to expose you to some of the many options that are out there. These are products that I've used and I really enjoy, but they're certainly not the only products out there. So, again, when we talk about registration platforms in this class, this is only going to cover a very small number of the actual registration platforms that are out there. And then I recommend, of course, that you do some research on your side and find a platform that really works for you using the strategies that we talked about in lesson 1, setting your targets, and then identifying your audience, and finally reviewing the gadgets that will be helpful for you. So let's dive right in, and please let me know in the forums or through email if you have any questions about a particular platform. I'd be happy to answer that for you as well. I'm going to skip past the assignment review because we did that in lesson 1. Okay, so let's start with project management tools. These are tools that you can use to manage the planning of an event, and I think that you'll find these to be very helpful. I find specifically in project management that, every person works so differently. Our brains are wired differently, and one product that works really well for a planner can work not well at all for another planner. So, I think that it's important to expose yourself to a wide variety and try these products and see whether or not they work for you. And it's totally okay if you find a task management system and you hate it and everyone else loves it. The key for you is finding something that really works the way that you and your team work, and something that makes sense. So this is the first one that I've used many times. It's Asana. This is my primary task management software. And you can see that on the left-hand side, you can list various projects. You could have a project for each event that you're working on, each project. You can allow different people into the conversation. So if you're working on an event for Pakistan, as you can see on the left here, then only the people and the clients who are related to that particular event can see that event, but they can't see everything else that you're working on. And then the tasks are what you're seeing on the main part of the screen. You can break these tasks up by category, so you can have speaker related tasks, sponsor related tasks, etc. And it's very simple. You create the task, you write what it is, when it's due, who is responsible for doing it, you assign it to the project, and when it's done, you check it off. If you were to click on a single task, for example, figure out the pricing ability with Stripe, there would be a pane that opens up on the right-hand side that allows you to have full conversations in that particular task. So if I wasn't sure, I was assigned that by my boss and I really wasn't sure what they meant by that, I could click on that task and mention my boss and say, hey, can you please give me some more clarity around this? They could put notes, they can upload files, they can show you pictures of things. And so you can have conversations about each individual task and then mark it as complete once it's finished. The key with any task management software is using it to manage literally every single task. So don't make it so broad, like close 10 sponsors. That's something that it will end up not being a task management system and more of a project management system. One of the good features of this is really that you can track every little detail that has to be done. So certain things need to be designed by a certain date. They then need to be, you know, uh, pushed to the printer. The printer then needs to print them. They need to be shipped to the location. Each one of those things should be an individual task if you're doing this in the way that you should be doing it. The next is Todoist. Todoist is another option for task management. It's a platform I used before I found Asana, and our team happened to work better with Asana, but again, we know that every team works differently. This is really a great way to help your team get things done faster, as you can see here. The collaboration platform is very similar to Asana. It's literally a design interface difference, in my opinion. You can link your files and do things similar to Asana that I just talked about, but this works differently. It just works better for different people. This is a third option. So if you're a very visual person, you like to work with Post-its, Trello is another task management tool. And you can see that what it does is it does all of your task organization by cards. So rather than organizing everything only by project, you can also link them by the stage of the project. So these are all the things that have to be done. The second column is things that are being done, they're actively in process. And then the third column would be things that are completed. This is, you can still assign them to different people, you can assign due dates, you can attach things, but it's a very visual process. I've also seen people, you can recategorize these titles. So instead of to do, doing, and done, you could make it ideas for the blog, in writing, and then your third column could be published. So you could use this to manage your editorial calendar or your marketing timelines. And you can set up multiple boards like what you see here. So you might have one for a particular event, or you might have one for just all event marketing. And again, you can make sure that people are tuned in and out just to the tasks that relate to them or to things that they should be aware of. So a lot of times, even if a sponsor manager needs to see speakers. They don't need to necessarily know every single detail about what's happening with speakers, but it's always good to tell a sponsor when a great speaker has signed on that you can control using the privacy settings in these task management systems. Now, Gmail is one of the most popular email platforms, even within large corporations at this point. I know NYU uses Gmail. And the goal with this particular platform is to use it for, people use email for everything. And so Gmail offline is actually a way to work on Gmail without an internet connection. The most popular reason why I would see this to be a really effective thing is that so many event planners travel a lot and we're always on the go. So if you're in an airport, for example, or on a plane and Wi-Fi is not available, then you're able to still work as if your Gmail was on. So basically what happens is this is a plugin. It's not a separate app, but it's a plugin for Google Chrome. So if you use that browser, what happens is right before you're going to lose your signal, you turn Gmail offline on, and you are then able to sync all the messages and all the folders and everything. It'll take it'll look exactly like your inbox does. And then when you go offline, you cannot receive new messages, but you can see all the messages that were sent from various people prior to you going offline. You can respond to them. You can put things in folders. And then when you get a signal, it resyncs everything. So it'll automatically send out everything that you had written. It'll put everything in the folders where you wanted it to go. And then it will bring in new email. I also find this to be an extremely productive tool for just regular everyday use. Sometimes we get so many emails coming in that you can't concentrate on the things you need to get through because something is always coming in and attracting your attention. So I actually use Gmail offline even on regular work days when I can completely have an internet connection. I just choose to turn it off. It allows me to get through my emails and catch up on things without, getting distracted by every new thing that pops up. In the events industry, we meet a ton of people, and I'm sure you've already started meeting so many people in the events industry through the program and then through networking events and other things. A lot of times, we meet so many people, and then it's hard to remember how we knew them or what they're interested in and what they do. So, Refresh is a very simple app for an iPhone, and it allows you to see some more details about different people that are in your contacts. It helps you to just get to know people a little bit better. And if you were, let's say, writing an email to somebody, you could reference a tweet that they had recently posted or an article that they were featured in. And I think it's really nice to just be able to have a tool that will help you make more authentic relationships, because this industry is definitely built on relationship building. Now, we did talk in lesson 1 about Pinterest. This is a kind of a magazine version of Pinterest. It's called Flipboard. And, as event planners, we're responsible for keeping up with all kinds of information, design trends, and um, technical things. Of course, we're talking about event technology in this course. Flipboard is basically a private magazine, and you're able to subscribe to either sources where you always love their content or different types of articles. So, for example, if you read Event Manager Blog, which is one of the very popular blogs in the industry, you can add them to your magazine. And then let's say you only have time on a Sunday night to catch up on all the industry reading. You can then go to your Flipboard, and it basically makes a magazine out of catered to you, out of all of your interests and things you want to keep up with. Um, it's a way of sorting through a ton of noise that's out on the internet, and also being able to keep up with the brands and the blogs that really give you good information. So, as you find a site that you really love that gives great industry information, you just add it here. And it's just a really, really easy way of making sure that you have um, information that's really related to you at your fingertips. Pocket essentially does the same thing. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but another really easy way to keep up with a lot of different information. Pocket is called Pocket, and it's a little bit different in the way that versus subscribing to a single blog and getting all of their content. This is great for your, running to a meeting and you happen to see an article on social media that's really interesting, you don't have time, you can quote unquote put it in your pocket. So you bookmark it, and then you can go back once a week and read through all the things you bookmarked. So that's a much more specific, you're actively putting in all the articles that you then want to read later, versus, the first one that we talked about, Flipboard, which is about, all the information from a few different sources. AnyDo is another task management system, especially great for people who only like to see what they need to do today. If you have so many things to do and you're getting overwhelmed, what you can actually do is assign all the due dates, and then you only see what's due for you today. And if you're not going to get time to work on it today, you can push it to later and say, remind me of this task in a day or in 3 days, and it will disappear from your view for the day and come back when you need it again. I find for people who get overwhelmed by looking at the full picture, this is really helpful because you can spend some time putting in all the different tasks that are related for a single event. But once you do that, you don't have to stare at them every day and feel overwhelmed by it. You can just focus on the 5 or 10 things that you need to get done that one day. And it allows you to really manage your list. If you can look at in the morning, you look at what has to be done that day and you're not going to get to it all, you can prioritize and push certain things out if, of course, that's possible. So for visual people, this is great. It's also just great for people who like to see just a very prioritized, immediate list of things that have to be done. Now, Evernote is a really huge tool. I personally use Google, I use Gmail, Google Drive, like the whole Google suite. And that is my personal way of organizing things. And I feel very comfortable using all Google products. But Evernote is kind of a very similar platform. And again, it works well for people whose brains just work differently. Than mine, at least. And it's a full platform, so you're able to link your contacts. One of the cool things that this does is if you went to an event and you had a stack of business cards, you could take a picture of each business card and it automatically adds all of the information from that business card to your contacts list. You can also access things from anywhere, and you get a ton of really interesting resources. And I think people talk about it like sticky notes for your brain. So you're basically taking everything that your brain is thinking about. There's a task management component, there's a group collaboration component. A very, very powerful tool. I'd recommend checking it out and seeing if it is something that you enjoy. It's one of those things, from my experience, that people love it and live by it and use it for everything in their life, or they don't really like it at all. I happen to be in the second category, but again, it's a very popular tool and very powerful. So that's why I share it with you, because I think a lot of people really do love it. Mailbox is, a lot of times we feel overwhelmed by our inbox. We see all the different things that have to be done. And a lot of times there's stuff sitting in your inbox that you don't actually need to look at right now. This is very similar to the app that we just talked about for task management, but it actually does it within your inbox. So if you can put all of your newsletter subscriptions to only come in on Sundays, or you get an email and I don't need to respond to that until another 2 weeks because that's for an event in 3 months, then you can actually have it come back to you in 2 weeks. So it allows you to look at an inbox that's much more immediate and prioritized, and allows you to push everything else off until whenever it is that you need to see those things. So instead of, seeing so many different tasks and emails all at the same time, you can really focus on what needs to be responded to right now and push everything off, obviously in full procrastinator mode until you really need to deal with it. Whoops, we went past a few here. Okay, Dropbox is the next one. Just allows you to store your stuff in the cloud. So if you have documents that you're sending, especially very large documents that don't go through email, let's say you have, all your speaker presentations, you can put them into Dropbox. It's free up until a certain amount of storage, and I think a lot of people get away with the free account. And so you can create a folder for your event. You can have all your speakers have access to that, and they can upload their presentations directly, or they can email you their presentations, and then you can put them all in one place. When I use it for speakers, I rename all the files. So it'll be one dash with the speaker name and then the title of the session, so that whoever's managing presentations on site can literally click from one right to the next, and they're all perfectly in order. If you're just titling them, it becomes very difficult to find files. So make sure that you have a consistent naming strategy for all of your files, whether it's speaker presentations or pictures from events. Just make sure that you know what it is you're finding. But you can create, just like you would on your hard drive, a folder with folders inside of it and files inside of those folders. So it's the exact same thing, but it's in the cloud. So you're able to access it remotely. For example, I like to upload my contracts per event into this. And that way, if I'm on site and I need to refer to something that we were promised or something that someone said we were going to get, I can easily get it from the cloud, and I don't have to print out an entire binder of contracts, and I also don't have to go sorting through my email. Very simple tool, but really, really popular in the events industry. I think most planners I know use this for document sharing. And then this is another option, Google Drive. Like I said, I use Google Drive a lot. I use Google Drive more for the collaborative editing. So for example, if I put a document together, then lots of people can use it. And we use what I call a tracker in Google Drive using Excel. It's basically a multi-tab Excel where everyone has access. So we track our sponsors, our speakers, our marketing timeline, our planning timeline, all within one document. And everyone who's working on that event has access to that document. And so I use Google Drive for things like that. And then I use Dropbox for storing very large files. In either of these cases, I think you should be aware that while they have privacy settings, I suppose that they still could be hacked. I'm a little bit more cautious about what I post in both of these. So I use them kind of in the moment. As we're planning an event, I'll upload all the contracts to Dropbox, and I will be working actively on something in Google Drive. And then once we finalize that project, I remove it from there and store it on a backup hard drive. I think that's a lot more secure than leaving tons of very important files in the cloud. So that's just kind of a note here. This is my goal in life. I don't get here that often, but the idea is inbox zero, using your inbox like a task management system. So once you've read an email, if there's no action that needs to be taken, you literally just archive it or put it in a folder. And if there is an action left to be taken, you leave it in the inbox and you work through those as you can. Asana is one of the task management tools that I told you about, and they actually integrate with Gmail in particular. So let's say that someone emails me and asks me to send them a particular file. From that email, I can create a task in Asana that tells me that I need to send them that file, and then I can archive the email so it's not in my inbox anymore. But when I go into Asana, I can actually pull that email right up, respond to it, and then mark that task as completed. So the idea here is we have a lot of tasks that we're doing, a lot of emails that we're managing, and one of the ways I can help you as you become more established in the events industry is to give you tools to help you manage those big categories even better, because these things will take over your life for sure if they haven't already. This is just something I want you to read. Tony Hsieh from Zappos, the very big shoe company that I think was bought out by Amazon. He has an email management theory. It's just a theory. There's no app associated with this. If you Google Yesterbox, you can read this full philosophy. But again, managing email is going to be one of your biggest tasks as an event planner because so much happens through the inbox. This is just kind of a philosophy on how to manage your email so that you're getting back to people in a very timely way, and you're not getting overwhelmed by things that keep coming in as you're writing. Sometimes I feel like I write an email and 5 more come in at the same time. It's really just a philosophy, and I think you might find it interesting. So I'd encourage you to Google it and read a little bit more about it. We talked about Slack in lesson 1, so I'm going to skip this slide, but it's included again because I love this platform so much, and I think it's just such a really great tool for event planners. So definitely check it out. Sunrise is an interesting calendar app. It basically takes your calendar activities and the different things that you have to do, but it also gives you lots of different views. So you can see morning, afternoon, and night. You can see a 2-day week or 3-day week or a 6-day work week. Really allows you to see more clearly when you're available, when you're not available, and it can sync with your task management system to say that I might not have that many meetings today. So if I look at my calendar, it's empty, but I have a ton of tasks. And so it allows you to get a better picture of what you actually have to do in a given day. And as you're planning in the future, you can say, I have 17 tasks due that day. I really can't schedule a meeting in 3 weeks from now. It's something that it's basically a richer calendar experience. If you just, had the calendar, you might think, yeah, I have plenty of time, but then you'd be scrambling because you weren't appropriately measuring what you had to do. This is a pretty straightforward app, and you can read what it does here on the main screen. LinkedIn is definitely one of the most popular social networks for professional networking, and so many event planners use it to make their connections and to join different groups. This app will actually send you a notification if your location is close to another one of your LinkedIn contacts. So if you're someone who's doing a lot of networking, you're meeting people, you're adding them to your contacts list on LinkedIn, and then you happen to be, I can't tell you how often this happens, that you'll be at a coffee shop and they'll be right next door, right in the same building as you. It just allows you to keep in touch with people even more easily. Very simple app, but it really helps you to keep those relationships. This app is amazing. It's called Expensify, and it essentially helps you to keep track of all of your receipts. So especially if you're going to be running your own company, but also if you're traveling for a boss and you're doing something for an event, so often we kind of like put our receipts in a bag somewhere, and then, we bring them out and they're a crumpled mess, and we have to try to make sense of all of that and then submit a report. With Expensify, you can download this app onto your phone, and as you make an expense, you can take a picture of the receipt and it will automatically archive it. So they're going to keep the pictures of the receipts Always good to have the originals just in case, but at least it's all in one place. You can categorize those receipts. You can assign them to a particular client or a particular trip or a project. And you can also categorize them by what type of expense they are, if it's a food related or hotel. And then you're able to run really interesting reports based on all of that. So you can see exactly why certain apps are better than others. Or you can pull reports to see why trips might have been more expensive than another, or um, vice versa. Okay, let's talk about registration platforms. Some of these we talked about yesterday. So, Eventbrite, for example, we talked about being a great platform for getting an audience that is much wider than the audience you yourself have. I think it's a very interesting and easy to use tool. It's one of the most popular registration platforms, even for professional events where you're charging a ticket fee, just because it's incredibly simple. They have some pretty powerful tools. Where you don't get to do a lot is with the branding of the page. You can add your logo and change the colors a little bit, but you're not getting, a page that looks like you've never left the company website or something incredibly branded. But if you're looking to host a new event and you just want to get an audience, this is definitely a great app. We talked in lesson 1 a lot about Bizzabo, so I'm not going to mention it too much here, but I think we talked in lesson 1 about it being an all-in-one seamless event planning platform. I do want you to remember, though, that it's also a very powerful registration platform. So your attendees can purchase their tickets through this platform, and they have extra perks like double-sided rewards, where a person can earn back part of the money from their ticket that they bought by sharing it with other people, and those people who purchase can also get a discount. They also have things like affiliate tracking. So if you just want to know who's sharing this event more and you don't necessarily want to offer discounts, you can do that as well. So you can just give everyone a unique link to share. And then you can see out of all the people who shared it the most and who had the most sales from the shares. Again, we talked in lesson 1 about just because someone has a lot of followers doesn't mean they have any influence. So it's looking at some of that hard data about sales and who are your influencers so that you can really leverage them. And Bizzabo gives you the power to do that. Now, Splash is another registration platform. I really love them, especially because they work very well for people who have design-focused events. So if you want to have a really beautiful registration page, something that's very branded, you have a designer on your team maybe who is really creative and wants to do something very unique, this platform is particularly flexible for those designs. You can really create something that looks beautiful, and they do have a lot of very nice templates that are built in. So even if you don't have a designer but you want a designed look, this is the place to go. It's a very simple platform like Eventbrite, easy to set up. They have a freemium model, so it's free to use up to a certain point. And so this becomes your event website / registration because it is such a beautiful site. You end up using it to show your speakers and your sponsors. So it's definitely more flexible than an Eventbrite. Now, Event Farm, we talked about them in lesson 1 as an RFID and NFC platform, and they definitely are that. But they also have a lot of software that allows you to register people to issue individual codes. So let's say you are inviting people to an event and it's a private event. You can send that invitation to a particular person and their system will block any other person from using that link to register. So especially when you have very targeted, I know they're used a lot for political events, but any kind of private event where you really want to manage your list, it's a great platform. Also, if you wanted to be alerted when people arrive. So when someone checks in, let's say the person who's coordinating speakers, when a speaker checks in, that coordinator immediately gets a text message on their phone that speaker X has just checked in. Please meet them at the registration desk. So you can set this up to track your VIPs or to get a really good sense of when people are arriving that are very important to the event itself. And that's one way that Event Farm really differentiates itself from other registration platforms. Okay, now we're going to talk about marketing. Affiliate marketing we talked about a little bit, which is essentially the idea that one person shares the event with other people and those people get a discount. That's what affiliate marketing is. And you're going to hear a lot about this, so make sure that you just understand the concept. The other similar concept is influencer marketing. Affiliate marketing tends to be with brands. So let's say we're hosting a conference for event planners. I might partner with the International Live Events Association, and they will share it with their members, and their members then get a discount. That's affiliate marketing. Influencer marketing tends to be individual people. So we're hosting an event for event planners. So I'm going to give Liz King a code, and she can share it with her network, and they will all get a discount. So the actual ticketing process is very similar, but affiliate marketing tends to be with brands, influencer marketing more with the people behind brands. We did talk about double-sided bonuses, so just be aware of that. Okay, now we're going to talk about travel and transportation. This is kind of a faster section. YAPTA. If you're someone who travels a lot, you're always booking flights for yourself or for your speakers. What you do is you book your flight, you then put that flight information into YAPTA, and it will price track for you every single day up until the day of the flight. So if you purchase your ticket 3 months before the event and suddenly 3 weeks before the event, the price is half price, they will alert you and you will get that 50% back. So instead of having, especially when you're tracking multiple flights, there's literally no way to do that in a seamless way. So this allows you to do that and kind of get through each flight and make sure that you have the best deals. ETA is a really good app for getting from one place to another. So if you're traveling to another city to host an event, I especially find this helpful because you will, not necessarily know where you're going, but you might need to meet with a caterer and then immediately have a meeting with another person. This is going to show you approximately how long it's going to take to each location. It will also link to the actual driving directions in Waze or Google Maps or whatever app you use. But if you're just trying to plan your day in another city or in a place you're not so familiar with, and you need to know, if I schedule a meeting at 10, could I get to another meeting in a different part of the city at 11:30, or is that not realistic? And they're going to show you the different ETAs so you can book your day. If you have speakers coming in on various flights, Flightboard is a great app. It just allows you to see the status of lots of different flights. You can check by airport and see whether the arrivals or the departures are on time or whether they're late, whether they've landed, etc. This is especially a good app to use when you're coordinating car service in tandem with the flights. Just to make sure that, if someone's running late, you can be communicating with the car service company and you don't have to be checking every single flight individually. This allows you to see a lot more at the same time. And this app does a very similar thing. So this app also gives you history. So if you're doing flights from San Francisco to New York on United, it will give you a hint at how often that runs late, how often it's on time. So if you're looking to book flights, and we have definitely done events before where a speaker is coming in the morning and they have to speak in the afternoon, we need to be very aware that they're taking a reliable flight and that we've researched all possible options. So this is one way to do that. If you aren't already using Waze, now is a good time to do that. It's just an amazing, simple app. It gives you directions from one location to another and allows people to see traffic. It does a very good job of routing you around traffic. Even when I'm going to the most simple locations, I use this now if you're driving, just to make sure that you are not, you can't predict where traffic is going to be. And there have been plenty of times where it says that I should take a different road to get to a place I've always gone. And I think that it's ridiculous. And I've learned to just listen to Waze. Definitely sat in hours of traffic because there was a big accident and it's something I hadn't heard about. And, I could have just routed right around it using Waze. This is just going to help you figure out the gates that your different flights are at. So especially if you're traveling yourself or you have other speakers or people coming into your event, very important information. Um, I'm obsessed with this app just for traveling. So if I'm traveling for an event, I just think the information that it gives you is much more specific. And it's a little bit of an off the beaten path one, but it's one that you might find you use a lot. Okay. So if you're traveling a lot internationally, this app is really interesting. You put in where you're traveling from, where you're traveling to, when you're departing, and which direction you're going. And then you put in what time you usually go to bed and what time you usually wake up. And it's actually going to give you a key to beating jet lag. So it will tell you what time you should go to bed, what time you should wake up, so that you can avoid jet lag. And obviously, when we're flying into another country to do an event, we're hitting the ground running and we have to be ready to go. And so this app it is very, very helpful. It's a good app for if you're taking the train in various locations. Here's another one that's pretty straightforward, so I'm going to let you just read about this one. This one, of course, very important, especially if you're traveling, because different cities have different tip policies, gratuity policies, or at least different gratuity cultures. So this is going to help you to calculate what makes the most sense. This one I use in New York City a lot to find parking, but they're actually across the United States as well. You put in the location of where you're going, and it gives you coupons and discounts to find parking at a much more affordable rate. I'm sure you're all familiar with Uber, so I'm going to skip that one. Skip lagged. So let's say you need to get from point A to point B and you need an inexpensive flight. I especially use this if I'm attending like an industry conference. I'm already paying to go to the conference. It's money out of my pocket. It's not like our clients are paying for us to go. So you can actually put in the from city and the to city, and it's going to give you all of those flights you wouldn't find on a traditional search, because they're going to give you, the first leg that is half of a leg on a different flight, and then they'll mix it up. They're basically mixing up the different flight options to get you where you want to go for more inexpensive price. It's often more stops or a little bit out of the way, but you're definitely going to save quite a bit of money by doing something like this. Airbnb, I wanted to talk about from a few different perspectives. It's essentially, where you can rent a place to stay. And yes, absolutely, this is just a good option for you when you're talking about looking for a place to stay. If you're attending a conference or your conference attendees are coming into town, we talked about how Airbnb may affect room blocks, for example, at a hotel. But also look at Airbnbs for non-traditional spaces. Let's say you need to host an event and the specs are something that's very comfortable, and it's actually a great place. A lot of people hold weddings and things like that at Airbnb locations. So think of it from an event venue perspective as well. Very similar concept, but is going to save you money on hotels if you book closer to the last minute. This particular app is just going to help you if you're, someone who's traveling a lot and needs to fall asleep. Very simple app. WorldMate, again, really interesting travel app that gives you a lot of help with where you're going, what time you need to be there, how early to get to the airport, and things like that. Okay, this last category of apps is things to help you explore if you are traveling. So I'm just going to kind of actually visually show you some of these. I think they're fairly straightforward to even understand what they are. And I find these very helpful for when you are traveling. Wi-Fi finders, of course, and maps for Wi-Fi finding. Language translation, very helpful. Word Lens is really cool. It's Google Translate, and you can literally take a picture of something, so a sign like what you're seeing here, and it will translate it from Russian to English or Korean to English or Chinese to English. So, if you're traveling and you're not even sure what the signs say, this app is incredibly helpful. These are more for exploring the area, figuring out where you're going. All right, so this last section is gadgets. These are just things that you should definitely, they're not apps, but they're actual products that you will definitely enjoy. Mophie is a backup charger, so it comes in different sizes and different shapes and styles, but the idea is that you charge up this device, and then while you're on the go, let's say your phone is dying, you can plug your phone into this device instead of searching for an outlet. The one that's in the middle is the one that I have, and I believe it goes 4 full charges from empty to full. So you can charge this backup battery once, and then you can go quite a while without, having to search for an outlet. Some of these have multiple inputs or outputs, I guess. So if you are, really event planner, hustle mode, you could charge your phone and your iPad or share your connection with another person whose phone is also dying. This has come in handy so many times, so I would strongly encourage you to look into this. For the ladies in the class or even the men, there is this purse that charges. There are much cheaper options of this, so this is just an example, but it's the same concept as a Mophie. I wanted to show it to you just because it's a little bit more fashionable, I suppose, but you're paying a lot more for this, and essentially what it is a Mophie in a bag. So you could just put your Mophie in the bag. um, this is a Wi-Fi option. It's actually a gadget. It's a box that you get. It's small, about the size of, I guess, a square credit card, and a little bit thicker. And it provides Wi-Fi on the go. And what I like about it is that you only pay for the data that you use. So I use this a lot for those in between times. I'm at an airport that doesn't have free Wi-Fi, or I'm at a hotel and I'm only there for a few hours, so I don't want to buy a 24-hour package of Wi-Fi for $30. I then use the Karma Wi-Fi and I pop it on. And what's great is that, you can immediately access the Wi-Fi, but it also shares it with the people around you so they can get a limited amount of data for free. So I mean, there's been so many times where someone next to me has also benefited from the fact that I was able to turn mine on. We've all seen these. I love them for events. I included this in the pre-event marketing because it's one of those gadgets that I think could be used very much to drive interest in an event, not just taking pictures of yourself, but flipping this around the other way, and really taking pictures of the venues that you're seeing. I think one of the most powerful pre-event marketing tools that we have is images showing us putting an event together. I think that people underestimate how much their attendees like to see an event go from, an empty room to a full room bustling with people. They like to see the stacks of invitations going out. They like to see this kind of stuff. So this is just a kind of funny gadget that will help you to do this more often. But I think you should be taking pictures and videos of the entire planning process and sharing that as part of your marketing plan. If you're ever out doing a site visit and you get a contract from someone and then you need to send that to your client and you don't have a full office set up, or you're on the go and you need to do this, Magic Wand, you just scan it over a piece of paper and it actually scans that entire document and will send it to you via email. So you don't need to find a scanner or go back to the office. And it's small. I mean, it's literally the size that you see here, fits over an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and it will really help you if you're always needing to get documents in a digital format from the print. If you're this is, I guess you could put this under travel, but it's a really interesting device. I would say what I want to say into this device in English, and then you can put any language as your input and any language as your output, and it will say what you're trying to say in another language. So, if you're trying to communicate on a business trip, you basically say, like, how do I find the airport? And then in Chinese, it will say it to the other person. Obviously, much easier than Googling it every time or having to rely on like a Wi Fi device. And this is just kind of a funny thing. It's similar to Karma Wi-Fi, but just the idea that there's all different ways that you can take Wi-Fi with you on the go, whether it's cufflinks or bracelets. I mean, Wi-Fi comes in all formats at this time, but I know it's something that all event planners really need on a very regular basis. So that's all that I have to cover for this particular lesson two. I know that was quite a while, so thank you for tuning in. If you can do your research on other pre-event tools as part of the assignment, and please let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in person for lesson number 3.